When my daughter-in-law told me to leave that morning, I smiled instead of crying. It wasn't because I was strong. It was because I didn't know what else to do. Her words were quiet, but they carried a weight I could feel deep in my chest. Alma, she said softly, avoiding my eyes. Maybe it's better if you stay with your sister for a while. I remember how she looked at the floor, twisting the edge of her dupatta, her voice trembling just enough to sound polite but firm, and I remember how I smiled, nodded, and said, "Of course, Beta, if that's what you want." Inside, my heart cracked like dry wood, but outside, I stayed calm, the way mothers do when they don't want to burden anyone with their sadness. I packed my small bag. Just a few clothes, my medicines, and the old photo frame of my son, her husband, who had passed away 6 years ago. She didn't notice the photo, or maybe she pretended not to. I slipped it into the corner of my shawl before closing the bag. It was raining outside that day. Not heavily, just a soft, cold drizzle that smelled like wet earth and forgotten memories. The house looked the same as always, but to me, it felt smaller, colder. As I stood by the door, she said, "I'll call you soon, Alma. Don't worry." And I said, "Of course, Beta. Take care of yourself." I smiled again. That was the last time I saw her. Now, sitting here in this quiet little room at my sister's house, I replay that moment every night before I sleep. The sound of rain on the tin roof takes me back to that day, that goodbye, that smile that hid 1,000 unshed tears. People think that with age comes wisdom, and maybe it does, but it also brings a long list of things you wish you had said differently. Sometimes I close my eyes and whisper to myself, I realized too late that goodbye meant forever. My name is Salmad, I'm 72 years old, and I've lived most of my life in a small town not far from Lahore. I wasn't always lonely. There was a time when my house was full of laughter, voices, the sound of children running in the corridor, the clinking of teacups, and the radio playing old songs on Sunday afternoons. I was a schoolteacher once. I taught Urdu and moral lessons to little ones who still believed that kindness could fix everything. After class, I would rush home, cook dinner, and wait for my son, Adil, to return from college. He was my only child, my pride, my reason for everything. When his father died early, Adil became both my strength and my weakness. He would hold my hand at the hospital and say, "Ami, don't worry. I'll take care of you." And he did, until life decided to test both of us. Adil grew up fast. Too fast, maybe. He was quiet but sharp, the kind of boy who carried responsibility in his eyes even when he laughed. When he got his first job in the city, he insisted I move with him. At first, I refused. "No, Beta," I told him, "you go. Start your life. I'll be fine here." But he said, "You're all I have, Ami. Home won't be home without you." So I went, and for a few years, everything was beautiful. We lived in a small apartment near the market. He worked long hours, but every evening he would bring me a cup of chai before sitting down to talk. We talked about everything, his work, my students, the neighbors, and sometimes about his father, too. He missed his father quietly, in small ways, the way he paused at old photos, the way he looked at me when something good happened, as if saying, "I wish Abu was here to see this." Then came the day he told me he wanted to marry. Her name was Hania. She worked with him, smart, polite, pretty, and a bit shy. When I met her the first time, she wore a simple blue dress and brought sweets for me. "Assalamu alaikum, auntie," she said with a nervous smile. I liked her immediately. "Wa alaikum assalam, Beta," I said, holding her hand. "Adil talks about you often." Her cheeks turned pink. Adil coughed, pretending not to hear. It felt like new life had entered our home. I thought, finally, someone who will take care of my son when I'm gone. I didn't know then that she would be the one to send me away. The wedding was small but beautiful. I still remember the glow on Adil's face when he placed the ring on her finger, and I remember thinking, my boy is finally happy. After the wedding, the house became livelier. We cooked together, laughed together, even watched dramas in the evening. For a while, I believed I had gained a daughter, not just a daughter-in-law. She used to call me Amma with such sweetness that it made my heart swell. Sometimes she would come into my room late at night, sit beside me, and ask, "Amma, how was your day?" I would tell her stories from my school days, about the children and their innocent mistakes. She would laugh softly, resting her head on my lap. Those moments, I still see them clearly when I close my eyes, but slowly, and I can't even say when it started, things began to change. It wasn't sudden. It was like winter coming early, a chill that creeps in without you noticing small things. Silences where there used to be laughter. Half smiles. Quiet doors closing softly but firmly. I told myself, it's normal. Married life is busy. They have their own world now. And I didn't want to be in the way. So I stayed quiet. I kept myself busy, cleaning, cooking, folding their laundry just so I could feel useful. Sometimes, when they went out together, I would sit on the balcony with my knitting, pretending I didn't mind, but every stitch felt heavier than the last. One evening, as I was making tea, I heard them talking in the next room. The door was slightly open. I didn't mean to listen, but their voices carried. She doesn't say anything, Hania was saying. But it feels like she's always watching, judging me. Adil replied quietly, Ami means no harm. She just worries too much. Hania sighed. I know, but I need space, Adil. We need space. Those words pierced me deeper than she could have imagined. Spaced, I went back to stirring the sugar in the tea, my hands trembling. When Adil came out, I smiled and handed him his cup. Here, Beta. I made your favorite. He took it, but his eyes were distracted. That was the first time I felt like a guest in my own home. Days turned into months. I began to notice how my footsteps in the hallway would make her fall silent, how she'd rearrange things I had already cleaned, how she'd whisper to Adil when she thought I couldn't hear. I tried to stay positive. I prayed. I reminded myself that relationships need patience, but sometimes, in the stillness of night, I'd wake up and wonder, what did I do wrong? Was I too protective? Too talkative? Too old-fashioned? Maybe I just didn't fit into their new world. Adil loved me, I know that. But he was caught between two hearts, the one that raised him, and the one he chose. I never blamed him for it, but I could see the strain in his eyes, the way his laughter grew shorter, the way he avoided long conversations with me. One night, I sat alone by the window, watching the streetlights flicker. Adil came into my room. Ami, he said softly, are you awake? Yes, Beta, I said, closing my diary. Come, sit. He sat beside me, holding my hand. She's a bit stressed these days, he began. I nodded. It's okay. Married life is not easy. He smiled faintly. You always understand, Ami. I wanted to tell him that I didn't always understand. That I felt like I was losing him little by little, but I didn't. I just smiled and said, sleep early, Beta. You look tired. When he left, I whispered into the empty room, I miss you, my son, even when you're here. Then, 6 years after their marriage, he fell ill. It started as a simple fever, nothing serious, but within weeks, it grew worse. The doctors couldn't find the cause. I prayed day and night, sitting beside his bed, reading verses through tears. Hania stayed strong, she barely slept. I respected her for that. We both loved him more than words could say, but one morning, just as the sky turned pale with dawn, he took his last breath, and my world, the little world I had built around him, fell apart. I remember holding his hand, cold and still, whispering his name over and over. Hania, I said through my tears, our Adil is gone. She didn't respond. She just stared at him, frozen, empty. 4 months after that, the house became a silent graveyard of memories. 2 widows living under the same roof, one too young, one too old, both broken in different ways. I tried to comfort her. I really did. I thought maybe if we stayed together, we could heal each other, but pain has a way of dividing people instead of bringing them closer. She began spending more time alone. I heard her crying sometimes behind her door, and I didn't know if I should knock or not. Maybe she blamed me, maybe she didn't. But she couldn't look me in the eye anymore. I told myself she needed time. So I waited. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months, until that morning, when she stood in front of me with trembling hands and said, Alma, maybe it's better if you stay with your sister for a while. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I just smiled, because I didn't want to make it harder for her. Maybe she thought sending me away would help her move on. Maybe she thought she was doing the right thing, but what she didn't know was that I had nowhere else to go. Now, every evening as I sit by the window at my sister's house, I hold that old photo of Adil close to my chest. The edges are worn, and the glass is cracked, but his smile is still the same, kind and patient. I look at it and whisper, your home doesn't feel like home without you, Beta. Sometimes I wonder if Hania ever looks at his picture too. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. All I know is that I left that house thinking I'd come back after a few days, but days became months, and months became years. And one quiet night, as I lay awake listening to the rain, I realized something that broke me all over again, that goodbye wasn't temporary, it was forever. When I first came to live with my sister, I thought it would only be for a few weeks. Her house was small but cozy, 2 rooms, a narrow courtyard, and an old guava tree that leaned over the wall as if listening to our conversations. She was kind to me, my sister. Always has been, but I could tell she pitied me too, in the way she spoke softly, in the way she tried to fill my empty evenings with unnecessary talk. "Salma, why don't you come help me in the kitchen?" she'd say, trying to keep me busy, and I would go, chopping onions or kneading dough, pretending it was enough to keep my heart from remembering. But no matter what I did, the silence from my old house followed me here. Every knock on the door made me think it might be her, my daughter-in-law, coming to take me home. Every phone ring made me hope she was calling to ask, "Alma, how are you?" Days passed, then weeks, then months. No call, no message, only silence. People say silence can be peaceful, but that's not true. Silence can be the loudest sound in the world. It echoes inside your heart, reminding you of every word you wish you had said. Sometimes I think about the last year I lived with Hania. There were so many small moments, tiny misunderstandings, that I ignored because I thought love would fix them. But love, I've learned, is like a plant. It dies quietly when you stop watering it with kindness. I remember one afternoon, a bright, hot day. Hania was in the kitchen, preparing biryani for guests. I was sitting nearby, peeling garlic. I noticed she was adding less salt than usual. So I said softly, "Beta, maybe a little more salt? You know how Adil liked it." She froze for a second. Then she looked at me, not angry, just tired, and said, "Alma, I know. Please, let me handle it." Her words weren't sharp, but her tone carried a wall between us. I nodded, placed the peeled garlic on the counter, and walked away quietly. That night, I couldn't eat the biryani. It tasted fine, but it felt wrong. Another time, she came home from work late. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from crying. I waited until she washed her face and then said, "Beta, everything okay?" She hesitated, then said, "Alma, I'm just tired. I need to rest." I wanted to hug her, to tell her she didn't have to carry her pain alone, but I didn't. Because I had started to feel like my comfort was no longer welcome. That was the beginning of the distance between us, not in miles, but in moments. Moments when I wanted to speak, but stayed silent. Moments when she needed help, but didn't ask. Moments when love stood at the doorway, unsure if it should enter or turn away. After Adil passed, our grief filled the house like thick fog. We were both drowning in it, but in different ways. I found comfort in prayers, old memories, and the rhythm of routine. She found comfort in silence, solitude, and shutting every door that reminded her of him. At first, I thought time would heal us, but time, I learned, doesn't heal what you refuse to face. It just teaches you how to live around the pain. One evening, I heard her talking to someone on the phone. Her voice was low, almost whispering. She said, "No, I can't leave her alone right now. She's his mother." Then a pause. "I'll find a way soon." I didn't understand what she meant, but those words, "I'll find a way soon," echoed in my mind for weeks. I started feeling like a burden. She never said it directly, but her silence did. Every time I offered to help, she would say, "It's okay, Alma, I've done it." Every time I tried to talk, she would say, "Later, Alma, I'm tired." One night, I woke up to find her sitting alone in the living room, staring at a photo of Adil. Her fingers traced his face again and again. She didn't notice me standing in the doorway. Then she whispered to the picture, "Why did you leave me with her?" Her voice broke on that last word. I went back to my room and cried silently into my pillow, not because she had hurt me, but because I finally understood. She didn't hate me, she just couldn't bear to see me, because every time she saw me, she saw him. After that night, I tried to give her space. I stopped sitting at the table when she ate. I stopped asking questions about her day. I even stopped turning on the radio because I noticed she preferred the silence. I began living like a guest, moving quietly, eating little, keeping to myself. I told myself it was for her comfort, but deep down, I knew it was because I was afraid that one day she might say the words I didn't want to hear, and eventually, she did. It was a Sunday morning. Just after far prayer, the house was still, the air heavy with unspoken things. She walked into my room, her hair uncombed, eyes swollen from crying. I looked up from my prayer mat. "Alma," she said softly. "Yes, Beta?" She swallowed hard. "I've been thinking, maybe it's better if you go stay with your sister for some time." My heart stopped. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, but I forced a smile and said, "Of course, Beta. If that makes you feel better. She nodded quickly, as if relieved that I didn't ask why. I didn't want her to see my tears, so I turned away, pretending to fold my prayer rug. That was the first goodbye. The quiet one. The one that doesn't sound like goodbye but feels like it. When I left that day, she stood at the door. She didn't hug me, she didn't meet my eyes, but she said, "Alma, I'll call you soon." I held her hand for a second and said, "Take care of yourself, Beta." Her fingers slipped from mine too quickly. I walked away slowly, the sound of my sandals fading down the street, the morning sun burning my tears dry before anyone could see them. Here at my sister's house, I kept waiting for that call every morning. I checked my phone, charged it even when the battery was full, but days turned into weeks, and when the first deed came, I waited by the window from sunrise till Maghrib, watching the street outside, listening for footsteps that never came. My sister tried to distract me. "Come, Salma," she said, "let's go to the mosque. You'll feel better." But I couldn't move. My eyes stayed fixed on the road, whispering prayers that she would appear. She didn't. That night, I placed a plate of kheer on the table and whispered, "Eid Mubarak, Beta." And then I cried, not because she forgot me, but because I realized she didn't forget. She chose not to remember. Months passed. I started helping children in the neighborhood with their schoolwork. It gave me something to wake up for. When I taught them, I felt alive again, like the old teacher I once was. Their laughter filled the house, even if only for a few hours. But every time I looked at their little faces, I thought of Adil as a boy, his messy hair, his endless questions, his soft Ami. "Can I have one more roti?" And every night after they left, I would sit by the window and whisper, if only he could see me now. One winter evening, I was folding clothes when my sister came in with a worried face. "Salma," she said softly, "I need to tell you something." I looked up. "What is it?" She hesitated. "Hania sold the house." For a moment, I thought I didn't hear her right. "Sold the house?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. Someone from her office told me. She moved to Karachi for work." I felt my knees weaken. My breath caught in my throat. The house Adil built with his first salary, gone. The place where we celebrated his birthdays, his wedding, his last days, gone. I sat down quietly. My sister tried to comfort me, but I could barely hear her. All I could think of was how that house wasn't just bricks and paint. It was memories. And now, they belonged to someone else. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat there, staring at the photo of my son, whispering, "Your home is gone, Beta. Everything we built is gone." Sometimes, I wonder if Hania ever looked back before leaving. If she stood for a moment in the doorway and remembered my face, my voice, my hands. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't, but I like to believe she did, because she wasn't cruel. Just lost. Grief changes people in strange ways. Some grow softer, some build walls, and some, like her, run away from anything that reminds them of what they lost. I don't hate her for that. I just wish she had said goodbye properly, with a hug, a tear, or even a word that meant "I'll miss you," because sometimes, silence feels like betrayal. Now, when I tell this story, people often ask, "Alma, why didn't you call her? Why didn't you go back?" I smile and say, because love shouldn't need to beg. If she wanted to find me, she would have. If she wanted to talk, she would have. I didn't want to become another name that brought her guilt. So I stayed here, and learned how to live with memories instead of people. Every night, before I sleep, I whisper Adil's name, then I whisper hers. "Wherever you are, Beta, I hope you found peace." And as the wind moves through the guava tree outside my window, I sometimes imagine it carries my words all the way to her. The first few months after they moved in were filled with laughter. Ayan used to come home from work and sit with me for tea. He'd tell me stories about his office, about how his boss always mispronounced his name. I'd laugh so hard that sometimes my eyes would fill with tears, but slowly, very slowly, things began to change. Not in one day, not even in 1 week. It was like a soft wind that keeps blowing in the same direction until one day you realize, it has moved everything. First, it was little things, the way Sarah looked at the way I folded clothes, the way she rearranged the kitchen, moving my jars and plates, saying, "Ami, it'll be easier this way." Easier for her, maybe not for me. I didn't say anything. She was the new woman of the house. I had been in that place once, young, full of ideas, wanting to make things my way. So I smiled and let her, but when she started keeping my teacup separate from theirs, I felt something inside me tremble. One morning, I saw her quietly move my cup to a different shelf. She said softly, "Amy, you like stronger tea? I'll keep this here for you." Her voice was polite, her smile gentle, but her eyes didn't meet mine. That's when I felt it for the first time, the invisible wall, thin as air, but cold as stone. Ayan didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't want to. He was busy. Always rushing, office, meetings, deadlines. Every time I tried to talk, he would hold my hand for a moment and say, "Amy, don't overthink. Sarah means well." So I kept quiet, but silence has a way of growing roots. Once it starts, it spreads everywhere. One afternoon, Sarah and I were in the kitchen. I was making lentils the way Ayan liked since childhood, soft, with a little lemon and coriander. Sarah walked in and sniffed the air. "Amy," she said, "this smell will stay all over the house. Let's just order something tonight." I looked at her and smiled gently. "It's his favorite," I said. "He'll be happy." She didn't argue, but she sighed, and that sigh, it stayed with me longer than her words. That evening, Ayan ate quietly. He didn't say much, but he smiled once, faintly. Then he looked at Sarah and said, "Maybe tomorrow we can order pizza." That was the first time I didn't finish my meal. Time went on, days turned into months. The laughter that used to echo in the evenings began to fade. Sarah started spending more time in her room. Ayan too. Sometimes, I'd hear them whispering at night, their voices low, like they didn't want me to hear. I would sit on my bed, hands folded, eyes on the ceiling fan, and wonder what had gone wrong. I never raised my voice, I never said anything harsh, but I felt like an old piece of furniture, still in the room, but not really needed. One Sunday, Ayan said, "Amy, we're thinking of repainting the house." I smiled. "That's good," he said. "We'll need to move your things out of the small room for a while." I nodded. "Of course." The next day, when I came home from the park, I saw my things, my books, my shawls, the framed picture of my late husband, all packed in boxes in the corner of the living room. Sarah said kindly, "Amy, don't worry, just for a few days." But those boxes stayed there for 3 weeks, and I couldn't bring myself to ask when I could unpack them. Every night, I would sit by the window, looking outside. The street light outside flickered, just like my thoughts. Sometimes, the neighbors' children would play in the lane. Their laughter would echo, and I'd close my eyes, remembering the sound of Ayan's laughter when he was little. He used to run barefoot through the courtyard, holding his tiny toy truck, calling, "Amy, look, I'm fast." And now, years later, he was still running, but too fast to see me standing still. One evening, while they were having dinner together in their room, I decided to make tea for myself. When I opened the cupboard, I saw that my teacup was gone. I looked around quietly and found it in the sink, still wet, but untouched. I washed it slowly, carefully, as if holding something sacred. When I poured the tea, my hands trembled. I sat by the window again, sipping slowly, feeling the silence fill the room. That's when I realized how loud silence can be. Then came the day when Sarah's mother visited. She was kind and polite, but she looked around the house like she was inspecting it. At lunch, she said, "You're lucky, Sarah. You have your own space now." Sarah smiled softly. "Yes, Amy." I felt my heart sink a little. Her own space. So what was I? Then, Ayan looked at me, as if wanting to say something, but he didn't. After they left the table, I stayed there, touching the rim of my empty plate. The room felt larger than before, and I felt smaller. Days turned colder. Sarah started keeping the windows closed. The sun barely touched my room now. I began going to the park more often, just to see faces that smiled back. Old women like me sat on the benches, feeding birds. We didn't talk much, but our eyes met, and in those quiet glances, I felt understood. One of them, Yasmin, once said, "You live with your son, right?" I nodded. She smiled sadly. "That's good. You're not alone." I smiled back, but my heart whispered, a person can be surrounded and still be alone. One morning, I woke up and saw a note on the fridge. "Amy, we're going to visit Sarah's cousin for the weekend. We'll be back Monday." Take care. I smiled, but when I realized they hadn't asked if I wanted to come, my smile faded. I spent that weekend making tea, watering the plants, and listening to old songs. The house was silent, too silent. I opened the wardrobe and found Ayan's childhood sweater, the one I'd kept safe all these years. I held it to my chest, feeling the old wool against my cheek, and that night, I cried quietly. When they returned, they seemed even more distant. They laughed together, whispered together, planned together. I wasn't part of their plans anymore. One evening, I asked softly, "Sarah, should I make dinner tonight?" She looked up from her phone and said, "Oh, Amy, we already ordered." I smiled faintly. "Okay." Then she added, "Don't take it the wrong way. It's just faster." Faster, yes, everything was faster now, except my heart, which had slowed with sadness. A week later, I overheard them talking. I didn't mean to. Their door was slightly open. Sarah said, "She's lovely, Ayan, but we need privacy. We can't live like this forever." And Ayan said nothing. The silence that followed was heavier than words. I went back to my room and sat down on the bed. My hands were cold. My heart even colder. I didn't cry. I just sat there, feeling the air thicken around me. That night, I couldn't sleep. The fan kept turning, the shadows kept moving, and in my chest, something broke quietly, like a thread finally snapping. The next morning, when Sarah smiled at me and said, "Good morning, Amy," I smiled back, but inside, I whispered to myself, "Something has changed. Forever." It happened on an ordinary day. There was no storm, no shouting, no broken glass, just quiet words that would change everything. I remember the morning clearly, the smell of breakfast still in the air, toasted bread, butter, a faint hint of tea. I had woken up early, as I always did. I made tea for myself and placed 3 cups on the counter out of habit, one for me, one for Ayan, one for Sarah, but they didn't come out. Their door was closed. I could hear faint voices, whispers, like a conversation they didn't want me to hear. I smiled to myself and thought, young couples always have secrets. So I didn't disturb them. I sat in the living room with my tea and looked around. The walls were freshly painted now, pale cream, clean and neat, but my family pictures, the ones that once filled the walls, were gone, packed in a box somewhere. I supposed. I remember touching the empty space on the wall where Ayan's graduation photo used to hang. The paint was smooth, cold. I whispered to myself, everything changes, doesn't it? A little later, Ayan came out. He looked tired. His shirt wasn't ironed, his hair a bit messy. He sat down in front of me. "Amy," he said softly. "Can we talk?" Something in his voice made my heart slow down. I nodded. "Of course, Beta." "What is it?" He took a long breath, looking everywhere but at me. Then he said, "Sarah and I have been talking. We think, maybe it would be better if you stayed with college Cha-Cha for a while." I didn't speak. I just looked at him, the same way I used to when he came home late as a teenager, waiting, letting him explain. He continued, "You know, he has a big house. And you'll have company there. Here, we both get so busy, you must feel lonely." Lonely. He used that word like a gift, but it felt like a knife. I smiled faintly. "I'm not lonely, Ayan. I have you." He looked down. "Amy," he said, almost whispering, she feels we all need some space." Space. A small word, but it echoed in my heart like thunder. I looked around the room, my home, my memories, the curtains I had chosen, the clock I had bought, the chair where his father used to sit, and suddenly, everything felt unfamiliar. Sarah came out then. Her face was calm, her tone gentle. "Amy," she said, "please don't take this the wrong way. We just thought you'd be happier with family your age. We can visit you every weekend." She smiled, but her eyes didn't. I nodded slowly. "I see," I said quietly, and then I did what mothers do best. I pretended to understand. I said, "Yes, of course. I don't want to be a burden." Sarah quickly replied, "You're not a burden, Amy. Don't say that." But I could see it. the relief in her eyes when I agreed. That relief told me the truth. After that, the house became very busy. Boxes appeared. Sarah started folding my clothes, labeling them neatly. Ayan went out to buy a new suitcase. I watched quietly, my hands folded in my lap. They were doing it so quickly, as if afraid I might change my mind. Sarah asked me, "Amy, which shawl should I pack?" I smiled gently. "Any. They're all the same now." She didn't understand what I meant. How could she? That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my bed, the lamp still on. I looked around my room, my books, my chair, the old clock that no longer worked but still ticked faintly in my heart. I thought of Ayan as a little boy, running through these same halls, calling, "Amy, look at me." And now, he couldn't even look me in the eye. I didn't cry. The tears had dried long before that night. Only a quiet ache remained, like an old wound that knows it will never heal. The next morning, they loaded the car. Sarah made breakfast, but none of us ate much. When everything was ready, Ayan said softly, "Amy, we'll drop you to Cha-Cha's house after lunch." I nodded. "All right." We sat together for lunch, though it didn't feel like a family meal anymore. It felt like a farewell dressed as routine. Halfway through, Ayan said, "You'll be more comfortable there, Amy. They have a nice garden, and you love flowers." I smiled. "Yes. I love flowers. But inside, I thought, I only ever wanted to bloom near you." When we reached Khalid's house, he greeted us warmly. "Baji," he said, smiling. "You'll bring light to our home." I smiled back, but I could feel my heart growing heavier. They carried my suitcase inside. Sarah looked around politely, complimenting the curtains, the furniture. I stood by the door, looking at the car. My home was driving away, taking my life with it. Ayan hugged me. It was quick, too quick. He said, "Amy, take care, okay? I'll call you." I nodded, holding his hand for a second longer than he expected. He smiled awkwardly, then turned to go. Sarah said, "We'll visit soon." I smiled. "Of course." And then they left. The sound of the car engine faded slowly. I stood there until I couldn't see it anymore. Then I turned toward the house, my new home. It was quiet, clean, and kind, but it wasn't mine. I went to the room they'd given me. It was neat, with fresh sheets and a vase of flowers on the table. Khalid's wife said, "Rest, Baji. You must be tired." I thanked her and sat on the bed. The sheets smelled of lavender, the walls were painted light yellow, everything was perfect, except my heart. That night, I lay awake for hours. The ceiling fan hummed softly. In the silence, I could still hear Ayan's voice, the little boy calling Amy, the young man saying take care. Both voices faded into one long goodbye. Days passed, then weeks. At first, Ayan called every evening, then every few days, then every few weeks. He said, "Work is busy, Amy, but we'll visit soon." I said, "Of course, Beta. Don't worry." And I smiled, even though he couldn't see it through the phone. One evening, it started to rain. I sat by the window, watching the drops hit the glass. The smell of wet earth filled the air. Rain always reminded me of my late husband. He used to say, "Rain washes everything clean." But this rain, it didn't wash away the ache. It only deepened it. As I watched the rain, I whispered softly. When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. Maybe that was my biggest mistake. Because sometimes, silence isn't strength. Sometimes, silence is the sound of breaking. A few months later, a letter arrived. It was from Ayan. He wrote, "Amy, I hope you're well. Sarah and I are moving to another city. It's a better opportunity for me. Don't worry, we'll stay in touch." I read the letter twice, then folded it carefully. The paper trembled in my hands. He didn't write where they were moving. He didn't say when they'd visit. I smiled through tears and whispered, "Goodbye, my son." And that's when I realized, goodbye doesn't always mean see you soon. Sometimes, it means forever. Morning comes quietly now. No rush of footsteps, no clatter of breakfast dishes, no voices calling my name, only birds outside the window, singing as if nothing in this world ever breaks. It's been over a year since that last day, since the car drove away and left me standing at the gate with a small suitcase and a quiet heart. At first, I counted days, then I counted weeks, now I just count seasons. How the trees outside my window change, how the air feels different when winter turns to spring, and sometimes, I sit on the same wooden chair by the window and think of that word, goodbye. You know, when we're young, we never really understand what goodbye means. We say it after school, after a visit, after a short trip, always believing there will be another hello waiting, but life, it has a way of teaching us that some goodbyes don't come with another door opening. They're quiet endings to chapters we didn't know were closing. I used to replay that morning in my mind, over and over. What if I had said something different? What if I had asked Ayan to let me stay? Would things have changed? But then I realized, love doesn't always hold you close. Sometimes, love lets you go, even when it hurts. Maybe he thought he was doing the right thing, maybe Sarah believed she was protecting her home, and maybe I was too proud to tell them how much I needed them. In the early days, I'd wake up expecting to hear his voice, Ami, chai ban gai? That was always his line every morning, and then, I'd remember, he's not here. That silence became my teacher. It taught me patience. It taught me that peace isn't found in noise or company, it's found in acceptance. Now, when I sit alone, I talk to myself like an old friend. Sometimes, I even laugh at my own jokes, and on quiet afternoons, I tell stories to Khalid's grandchildren when they visit my room, stories about love, mistakes, and the small moments that shape a life. One evening, Khalid's wife brought me a small box. She said, Baji, this came for you. It was a parcel, brown paper, neatly wrapped. The handwriting was familiar. Ayan's. My heart trembled as I opened it. Inside, there was a shawl, one of mine, the red one I had left behind, and a small photo framed. It was a picture of me holding Ayan when he was a baby. There was a letter, to Ami. It said, I don't know how to start this. I know I hurt you. I thought I was doing the right thing. But every night, when I sit at dinner, I realize the house doesn't feel like home without you. I miss your voice. I miss your stories. I miss you. I'm sorry I let you go so easily. Sarah and I talk about you often. She says she wishes she had spent more time with you. Please forgive us. I'll come to see you soon. Your son, Ayan. I read that letter many times. The ink had bled a little, maybe from his tears, or maybe from mine. I didn't cry the way I thought I would. Instead, I felt something softer, a kind of peace I hadn't known before. Forgiveness is strange, isn't it? It doesn't come all at once. It seeps in slowly, like sunlight through old curtains. That night, I sat by the window again, wrapped in the red shawl. I could almost feel his childhood warmth again, those little arms around my neck, that laughter that filled my world. I whispered softly, I forgave you long before you asked, my son. I was just waiting for you to forgive yourself. Weeks passed after that letter. Ayan didn't visit right away. Life has its own pace, and I've learned not to rush it. But every time I look at that photo frame, I don't see regret anymore. I see a story, one with mistakes, silences, and love that survived them both. Sometimes, Sarah calls me now. Her voice is gentle, softer than before. She tells me how the new city is busy but beautiful, how Ayan often talks about coming to visit soon, and I tell her, take your time, Beatty. The heart waits better than the clock. She always pauses for a second, then says, we love you, Ami. And that's enough. Those words fill the spaces that were once empty. A few weeks ago, I planted flowers in the small garden behind Khalid's house, jasmine, roses, and marigolds, my husband's favorites. Every morning, I water them, and as I do, I whisper the names of everyone I've ever loved, those here, those gone, those who drifted away, because love, once planted, doesn't die. It just changes form. Sometimes it becomes forgiveness, sometimes memory, and sometimes quiet acceptance. I often tell the children who come to listen to my stories, when someone says goodbye, don't rush to move on. Let the goodbye settle. Let it teach you what mattered. They don't understand it now, but one day, when life gives them its own goodbyes, they will. I've learned that forever isn't about time. It's about the space someone leaves behind in your heart, a space that never empties, only softens with years. Ayan once said in his letter, "I'll come soon." Maybe he will, maybe he won't, but I no longer wait with sadness. Now I wait with love, quiet, patient, and thankful that I had something so beautiful to miss. One evening, as the sun was setting, Khalid came to my room and said, "Baji, you have a visitor." I turned toward the door, and there he was, my Ayan, older, thinner, with tired eyes but a familiar smile. For a second, I couldn't move. Then he stepped forward, and I felt his arms around me, strong, trembling, like he was afraid I might vanish if he let go. "Ami," he whispered, his voice breaking, "I'm so sorry." I held him close and said, "No, Beta. Don't be sorry. Just be here." He cried like a child and I stroked his hair, just like I used to when he was small. There were no speeches, no explanations, only hearts finding their way back home. That night, we had dinner together, me, Ayan, and Khalid's family. It wasn't grand, just simple food, laughter, and warmth. And when Ayan said, "Ami, the food tastes just like before," I smiled and said, "Maybe because you're here." Sarah called later to say hello. Her voice was shy, nervous. I told her gently, "I'm glad you called, Beatty. I missed your voice." And she said, "I missed yours too." In that small exchange, all the distance disappeared. Now, when I look at the stars at night, I don't feel alone anymore, because forgiveness brought everyone back, not always in person, but in peace. And sometimes, peace is the most beautiful kind of reunion. I realized too late that goodbye meant forever. But I also learned that forever doesn't have to mean sorrow. It can mean remembering without pain. It can mean loving without needing. If life gives you another chance, take it with softness. If it doesn't, hold your memories like precious rain. Let them fall, let them cleanse you, let them remind you that you lived, and you loved, because love never truly leaves. It just changes how it stays.